show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here's our BBB&JOEB, and the BBB, baby, BBB&JOEB, rock, cock, and Joe Rally. BBB&JOEB, and the BBB, baby, BBB&JOEB, rock, cock, and Joe Rally. We're coming in, only seeking the truth about JFK. It's the Long Coming Podcast crew. Tell 'em, Joe, here we go.
And happy Lanmcer weekend, and here we go.
That's right, Joe. What's up, everybody? Welcome in, folks. This is the Long Coming Podcast, episode number 370. In case you can't tell, Joe is not in Dallas.
Yes.
Joe, tell everybody what the hell happened.
Okay, so I'm going to bed last night at around 11:40 exactly. Right? I'm starting to doze off. I start getting a bunch of, vibrates from my phone. And I'm like, what is my friend sending me like a million reels, which he always does, in a row? But I look at it, and it's my American Airlines app saying your flight has been canceled. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll unset my alarm for 5 a.m. this morning now. I wake up, your flight has been rebooked. What they failed to tell me, or they might have in the super small print, was that it was
Joe didn't read the instructions.
was from LaGuardia to, ironically, John F. Kennedy Airport, both in Queens. So your boy showed up at the wrong airport. And and it has been a hell of a day, man, at the airport. $100+ Uber back to Connecticut because my girlfriend who drove me had a call. Then I thought my PowerPoint that I worked on for 2 days disappeared. I was finally able to recover it. So I was able to take a little nap, and I will be on a 6 a.m. flight to Dallas in the morning for my 30 hours total in the Big D.
Well, Joe might not be in Dallas, folks, but we do have somebody that is, and you might know her. So without further ado, Joe, let's bring on Miss Paula Jane to the show.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hi, Paula. How are you?
Dandy, how are you?
Doing fantastic. Better than Joe.
Better than me.
I think we all are, yes.
Yes, I wish I was sitting there next to you.
So do I.
But I will see you tomorrow early. And we had our chicken lunch planned.
We had it all out. Yeah. We had it down to a science of airport chicken conference. We had it all worked out.
Yeah, it's a good lineup. But life gets in the way. But so tell us, you've been taking copious notes all day.
I have.
How has the first day of Lanmcer gone so far?
It's kind of a train wreck, Joe. They had, well, first of all, the sites that I've been on, and many of us have been on, said that the conference started at 2:00. When we got here, many of us found that the conference for them was supposed to start at 10:00. But so already, and I'm not the only one. I'm at a whole table full of people who are kind of ticked off at this. And then they had technical difficulties and didn't get started at all until 11. when Paul Abbott started, and he apparently gave a really great presentation that I missed almost all of. I got there what I thought was early, but in fact, they had already started, and and they had booked my registration under my credit card name, not the name I go by now, so they couldn't find it. Anyway, when I found out Paul Abbott was still going on, I literally threw her my credit card and went in to listen to the rest of Paul Abbott because I'm here as a reporter for the Lone Gunman, and I didn't want to miss any more. So, but they have it all worked out now. They have it all worked out now, and I just fixed my name tag so that it matches me. But Abbott was giving a very good presentation on the um, basement at the Dallas PD and what he thinks happened with
Ruby Hunt.
the Ruby shooting Oswald, um, and he follows some of the things that uh, Armstrong does about how he thinks that uh, the shooter Ruby could have gotten in, and it makes a lot of sense. The DPD, what that used to be the DPD headquarters, is now taken over by the North Texas School of Law. But when it was DPD, I was there, and it is, first of all, very easy to get in there, even 30 years later, into the 2000s, which I guess would be almost 40 years later. You could walk into areas behind the so-called security perimeter, extremely easy. I've done it myself. But the 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 essential part of understanding how Ruby could have gotten in undetected is that the so-called annex of DPD was built so that the floors didn't line up exactly. Like it's one building connected to another building, connected to another building, and you could get into DPD by going through the annex on the other side, where you weren't really in, you know, the police department per se, but you could still connect through there. And both he and Armstrong um, believed that it wasn't so much Ruby knowing when Oswald was coming down as they were sending him down whenever Ruby appears. That, Ruby is the trigger going in, no pun intended, rather than Oswald. Here comes Oswald, so now you can go, Ruby. So anyway, and he of course, everybody seems like is pushing a book, and he has his own channel now on death deathtojustice.com, and also the channel I believe is called City Hall Basement. So it's his fuller explanation is in his book and his channel.
Okay.
Very
And
good.
all right, so we started off with Paul Abbott. Who was after that?
Well, then, because they had started late, they decided to take an hour and a half, maybe longer lunch break. Don't know why that is, but everybody is now getting their time shortened because people are tired,
Right.
but they did take that lunch break.
Hmm.
Um, and then we had Bob Reynolds Nelson. And the connection there is the middle name Reynolds, because he is the nephew of Philip Nelson. And this guy gives his family story. He frames it all as a family story because it's his uncle, who he says was running with um, Bobby Baker and all of that ilk in Washington, D.C., and that on the very day of the assassination, his uncle was being a whistleblower to Honest John Williams, a senator from Delaware. But and that is when, of course, everything melts down on 11/22/63. And he's not only now, much like the Life magazine story, he's not only now blowing the whistle on the vice president, but it is now the president. And the family story is that you then have um, him, his uncle's life being threatened, um, and his uncle eventually goes off to the Bahamas. This is one of those stories. I don't know how much is family lore and how much of
Right.
it is actual fact. I mean, it's there's nothing in it that's implausible, and my skepticism may be being triggered by this gentleman's presentation because literally things were falling off the podium while he was talking. I mean, it was just books and whatever falling off the podium. So that didn't instill a lot of confidence. He kept walking away from the microphone and
Rob,
couldn't really hear it.
was this one of the guys that was on that 5 panel $25 Zoom call with Morley the other day? Was this his name? Bob Nelson? You're muted.
Yes, his name is Bob Nelson. Yes, and so
Was
I didn't hear
you said
the
his uncle's name was Phil Nelson?
his his uncle was Don Buck Reynolds.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, Don Buck. Yeah, Don Buck Reynolds, and not Scafuza. This gentleman is
You may call that guy.
Bob Reynolds Nelson. Okay. He's the nephew of Uncle Buck, as it were. And so anyway, he felt threatened and silenced and went off to the Bahamas. And then his aunt reported that she felt like her phone had been tapped and she was being surveilled. And again, it's one of those things that's plausible, but it also sounds like something maybe old Uncle Buck was, telling one night as a bedtime
Yeah,
story.
embellishing a little bit. Yeah, it's great that you're skeptical because I've been so much more skeptical since when I started this podcast. I think, Rob, 2 years tomorrow will be our anniversary of our first show.
But I think it's close enough to call it 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years anniversary. Become very skeptical of almost everything of the this was taken, this was stolen, et cetera, et cetera. I felt like I was being followed, or tapped. It's always like plausible, not provable. So, what can you really do with it?
And it's definitely in the LBJ did it school. And also, if you pursue it, it's nothing that really gets you closer to solving it. You can prove that. I mean, the chances of proving this or disproving it are pretty small. And even if you did prove it, it's not, anything, it's nothing you could take to court. It's not a smoking
Right.
gun by any means. It's just, whoa, that's pretty bad for old Uncle Buck.
God says he gave the same presentation 2 years ago there.
So,
Okay, so after that,
It's kind of like Judy, you're a one-trick pony. You're a one-trick pony.
I mean, it's his uncle and
Yeah.
or not. So,
right.
And then we had Scott Reed give a presentation on the shooting of General Walker, and it was somewhat. It was detailed. It was nothing that you all haven't covered on the podcast already. Um,
Well, let me tell you something, Paula. Listen to the rest of the show tonight, and you let us know if our presentation is better than Scott Reed's, and if we have any new information.
Yes.
Look
Eh,
forward to it. I
What
truly do. Yeah.
what
Um,
was his conclusion, if you don't mind me asking, in regards to the shooting?
well, he was going through the evidence that it was not that wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald. Um, he pointed out that well, first let me say that his name is not only Scott Reed, but he is a Scot, and I could barely understand the man. It was such a thick accent, and then there were some people over to the side that were at the book sales, which they have in the same room,
The
and so he was very difficult to understand. But he went through, the license plate being punched out, and
right.
that the two witnesses that saw two men, both of those witnesses said that neither of the two men looked like Lee Harvey Oswald. One, of course, was the 14-year-old,
Kirk Coleman, yes.
yes, Coleman, and the other was someone who saw them reconnoitering, kind of casing the joint a couple of days early. Neither one of those witnesses said that it looked like Lee Harvey Oswald. He also went down a road about um, Michael Payne, saying that they were all having dinner on that night on the 10th, April 10th. And of course, if that was the case, if Lee Harvey was having dinner on Neely Street with the Paynes, he couldn't be at the Walkers. And the contradiction was that it was no, Payne had his dates wrong. It was really April 2nd, but that was election day, and they would have talked about the mayoral race because they were so interested in politics. I think that's kind of a dubious leap there. To be interested in geopolitics is way different
Who the mayor is?
than who the mayor is. I
Ye-
I promise you, I do not know the mayor of the town I live in right now.
Me either. They don't do shit for me, so
Yeah. And Oswald I don't see Oswald being concerned with local politics, or else there would be some evidence of him trying to get in local politics. And
Exactly,
right?
exactly. I mean, I'm skeptical. I don't believe it was Oswald either, but I don't think that's dispositive of it. Let's see. The bullet that was used in the Walker shooting was steel jacketed as opposed to copper jacketed, which was, of course, the bullets and the assassination. And uh, Walker said that the bullet that was being analyzed was not the bullet that he saw. Um, and then they questioned the chain of custody because there are two different DPD officers that claim that they found the bullet and then gave it to the other one. And so that really messes up the chain of custody. And it does. Now, in my own experience with DPD, that happens all the time where no one can't remember exactly, there's a bunch of them at the scene, and when they start to get together about who did what, they either can't remember or they have a reason to put it on the other one. I know when I was arranging for officers to come and testify, there would be like 20 that were on the report as there at the scene. But when it came to was going to come testify at my trial, well, especially if it was deer season, it was really, Schmo over there that was really did everything. You don't need me to testify, Paula. You need that guy behind the tree to testify. So,
Hmm.
yeah. But this guy has contact information at Scott Reed, that's SCOTTREID at hotmail.co.uk. And
Yeah.
know if you want to ask him what he was talking about while the people were selling books. That to
Yeah.
talk to. Yeah.
Well, yeah. There's all these tables set up outside the ballroom, at least in the past 2 years, with
Yeah.
people like Jeffrey Meek and Ocelli, and everyone has their own little stands. And
This one,
listen,
this one is
it's
actually set up in in the ballroom where
oh,
they're speaking. They're all up against one wall and chatting over there. And being the shy flower I am, I went over and told them to please shut up.
seems to be a theme
Bravo.
sometimes. That's how is the ballroom? I mean, I know there were some technical difficulties. How is the ballroom, and how is the attendance?
The attendance is much better than it was last year. It's I would say there were around 200 people in the ballroom. That would be my estimate.
Wow.
Somewhere between 150 and 200. I would say 200. And about 20% of us this time are female, which is so nice. There were times
Nice.
last year when I was the only female in the room, and when I wasn't the only female in the room, the others looked pretty crazy. Got to say.
So AUS does have its benefits.
It does, but I haven't seen either one of the AUS guys, but I have heard some talk on the tables about, they clearly know Grobert and so forth.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure there's a lot of people there because they're there. Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
probably so. And
Yeah.
I have to say, Hundley isn't nearly as bad when he's not around Grobert. I have listened to some of his podcasts on the Oklahoma City bombing that were really very good,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
he's
I
a
mean,
bad
he
influence.
yeah. um, he's not a horrible guy. I told a story 2 years ago where when I actually bought him a beer and had a chat with him, and I said, "Hey, we were at the bar. I was like, hey, you want me to get you a beer?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'll take 2 Bud Lights or whatever." And he took one down to his room.
Wow.
Oh, God.
Big times you, Joe.
I was like, "Okay."
That does say a lot.
So yeah, who was? Did you see anyone else of note?
I saw Matt Crumpton was sitting in the very back, and I'm not sure when he slipped in. I didn't see him just until I was leaving to come upstairs with Trey Hammer's laptop that I'm using here. And when I
Yes.
was sneaking out of the room, I happened to see him sitting at one of the back tables.
Okay.
Uh,
Yes.
and that's all the only person I've recognized so far, except oh the young man that does the camera work that has
Alex Harris.
Alex Harris. I saw Alex Harris play uh, uh, plunking around on the grand piano outside the big conference room, just kind of yeah, kind of yeah.
That,
Not even that advanced, Rob. Not even
well,
that advanced. So
yeah, that's
yeah,
funny. That's probably a very Alex Harris thing
You're like
to do. I
chopsticks.
love
yeah. He'll if he works on it, yeah, he can do that.
him. Yeah.
Probably
Uh,
plays piano as well as he could probably sing. So
about
we
as
love
well as I can sing for sure.
I hear you.
And then Gary Fannin came on, and Gary Fannin was supposed to be talking about. I just met Janet Bannister. Anyway, Gary Fannin came on and supposedly was going to give a presentation on Mockingbird, but it was really more like a tour of conspiracy theories, some of which I subscribe to, but it was more like a catalog of conspiracy theories since 1963.
Did he go over JFK Jr.?
He did not get to JFK Jr. He has written a book on it though.
I know. Yeah, he did it last year, I think. Scott can correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, they were having to shrink the presentation, so to make up for all the time we had taking lunch at 3 p.m. But he did mention, let's see, again, it really wasn't so much Mockingbird at all. He did mention a group called the Bethesda Seven, which I hadn't heard about. Apparently, he assembled a bunch of people who had been on the honor guard in Washington, D.C. on November 22nd and presented them with some evidence, and they compared amongst themselves where they had been and what they had been doing at that time, and concluded that the casket that they took into the autopsy room was empty.
Okay.
He gave a well, he clearly believes in the Murchison Party, and talked about how there was a body double for LBJ in Fort Worth,
Right.
so that LBJ could go himself to the Murchison Party, and he believes that it was at the Murchison Party that the Secret Service leader was read into the plot to assassinate.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. Well, anything else of note before we let you go here? And we do want to thank Trey for coming in the clutch and bringing you this laptop, since I was not there to do so. And
No, like I think I told you before things started, they are looking right now at a film about the medical evidence, and I hope to get maybe a link to it, because that one does look like a very informative film, but it's a film, so maybe it's available somewhere else without having to come to Dallas.
Right. Well, Paula, thank you so much. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. I hope we
Look
can.
forward to it.
I hope we can squeeze in our chicken lunch,
I do too.
and I will be there at about 10 a.m. I'm already checked in,
Okay.
so I'm not charged another fee, and I will be there bright and early, and I look forward to seeing you. And I thank you so much for
Thank
joining us.
you. I
And
look forward to tonight's show. Peace.
Yes.
peace.
Peace.
See you soon.
See you
Thank
soon.
Thank you again.
There she goes, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Paula, for the update live from Lancer without Joe. She did a fantastic job without
Yes, she did. Yes.
you. Yeah. Interesting. All right, Joe. You ready to do this?
Yep.
Now, folks, channel members, if you're a channel member and you caught the show Wednesday night, you knew what we were going to be talking about tonight, and you got a little bit of an early, legitimate preview of everything we do here, or everything leading up to what we're going to be talking about tonight, I should say. The backstory, if you will. So if you're curious about that, might want to look into becoming a channel member. We do good work over there. Make sure you check it out. Tonight, we've got a hell of a show for you, and it does have to do with the General Walker shooting. It does have to do with that week in April, because there's been a document out there for a very long time, well, at least since the HSCA, and it contains some very curious information, and we'll get to it here in a second. And it kind of sparked me and Joe's interest, because I also ran into something else that didn't make sense, and we'll get to that too. And it always bothered me. Something about the August 1st letter that Lee Harvey Oswald Lee Harvey Oswald wrote to V.T. Lee of the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. And we'll get there too, I promise. But in the course of trying to run all this stuff down and try to figure out exactly what happened, well, of course, we stumbled into a major rabbit hole, folks. And I mean major. And we're going to drag you, kicking and screaming, down the rabbit hole with us here tonight. So, Joe, without further ado, are you ready to get into this, my friend?
I am. And Rob has taken over my PowerPoint privileges for tonight.
Yes, I am the PowerPoint daddy, if you will. And real quick, I don't know where it is. It's got lost in the mix. I don't know where to look at posted, or I pinned the comment, but I don't know how I don't know how to get to it on here. Do you? Is it up in the search bar?
I'm looking here.
Oh, okay. I got it. Some bitch. Here we go.
Oh,
That's right. The Double B gifted 5 memberships to folks.
yes.
Don't know who got them, but
I do.
Oh, do you?
Yes. Mike Library Man, CWY Man 77. Hopefully I didn't get one. Logical Spark, Joe Ellen, and Perpetual Concepts. What's up, bud?
Bravo. Where's my clappers? Man, I really got to figure this shit out. Here we go.
Yes.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you. We appreciate it. The 5 scafuzzers that got free memberships appreciate it. And,
how great is it that Paula uses scafuzzers? It's
awesome.
It's great that this word has been added to our fam's vocabulary.
Absolutely. All right, Joe, you ready to get into this and see if this works?
Yes, sir.
No guarantees that it will. Just saying. Okay. Hopefully everybody can see what I'm about to do.
All right. So we are going to go over the timeline of Oswald during, this is my name, the Walker Week, right? I made this nice little graph here, and you will see Oswald's last day at Jaggers GCS. I always say it wrong.
Where?
Jaggers.
Legitimizing the
Jaggers, Chivers, Stovall.
No, but that's close.
Jaggers. Okay. And you could see that we have the date, the arrow here, in the middle of the 5th and the 6th. And we will get there because there is some conflicting evidence of when his actual last day was. Now, April 6th is a Saturday, right?
Yes.
So there are some documents that say his last day was the 6th. There are some that say they're the 5th, and we will go over that. On April 8th, as we will get to in a second, we have Hidell on the ferry flight manifest to Dallas, Texas, from, I think it's Hammond Airfield in Louisiana.
Garland.
No, that's where he's going.
Right.
He left from Hammond.
Yeah, you said Dallas.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. And same day as Oswald contacts, and as you can see, contacts is in quotations because we
allegedly.
Yes, the Texas Employment Commission. 2 days later, on April 10th, which is a Wednesday, we have the Walker shooting. And then on April 12th, we have when Oswald fills out his unemployment benefit form at the TEC. So I'll let you take this, Rob.
Okay. So this, folks, is the flight plan that was found by the HSCA that was in some of Garrison's files. He was asked about it. He didn't really said he really didn't pay much attention to it, but you think that he would if he'd actually read it, because. And I named this episode. That's a problem, because I'm going to be saying that a lot during this episode. Okay. Here's the deal, folks. This flight plan by David Ferry on April 8th, 1963 lists 3 passengers, and they're down there at the bottom.
Yep.
Bottom right corner. Heidel.
Oh,
Whoa, Joe, what's going on? There you go.
I'm zooming in on it.
Heidel, spelled correctly. Lambert and Diaz. Okay. Now, was Lee Harvey Oswald on this flight? Well, we're going to try to answer that question this evening. And we're going to actually see if it was possible. We're going to see if there's any corroborating evidence that even puts him in New Orleans, okay, in early April, okay, because he allegedly didn't go to New Orleans until the end of April. I think the 23rd or 26th is when they moved back to New Orleans officially.
Yep, end of April.
Yeah. I believe it was the 26th. The problem here, when I say that's a problem, okay, is that Oswald adopted, allegedly, this Alex James Heidel alias somewhere in the month of February or March. The first time we see him use it is, of course, to order a rifle and a handgun. If he, of course, this is all allegedly. If he's the one that ordered the rifle and the pistol and used that alias, this would be the first instance. Same thing with his ID cards, his selective service cards that were forged, likely at Jagger's Child Stovall, with the help of a convicted felon, okay, showing him how to do it. We'll get there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I say that's a problem, okay, either you have Lee Harvey Oswald on this plane, but he doesn't want his name on this flight manifest, so he tells Ferry, just use Heidel. That's his alias. He's made it up, and he tells Ferry, just put Heidel down there. Or, here's why it's a problem. If Lee Harvey Oswald is not on this plane and he does not know David Ferry or speak to David Ferry on a regular basis, then you have to explain to me how the fuck David Ferry would know about Lee Harvey Oswald's alias that he used allegedly to order a rifle and a pistol and make fake IDs for.
Right. Within a month-ish, maybe a little more.
Yeah, within a month or so of their creation. Now, when you take a look at this logically, it would seem to me that obviously either somebody told Ferry that Lee Harvey Oswald is using this alias, and the setup started way back in April. Or we know that David Ferry, we can establish the fact that David Ferry, hang on, Joe. I feel like I'm talking to a piece of paper. And I'll add it back when we get to moving on. But so when David Ferry, we know David Ferry knew Lee Harvey Oswald in the CAP program.
Yes.
We don't know for sure how well they knew each other and whether or not their relationship continued after this. It might have. we can definitely put these guys in close proximity of each other, if not together, in the summer of 63. But how about earlier than that? How about earlier than that? So when you're looking at this thing logically, folks, does it make more sense if Oswald is actually there to tell Ferry, use my alias? Just put Heidel down there. I don't want my real name on this thing. Because maybe they had a plan. And we'll get there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, Joe, let's continue.
You know, Rob, one thing I just noticed, and I probably should have noticed this earlier, if you see the destination, right, of intended landing, Garland, Texas.
Yeah.
Look at row F, alternate
Right.
landing, Dallas.
Well, they're very close together. I mean, Garland is like a suburb of Dallas. But yeah, if something's going wrong and they can't land in Garland, then of course they'll go to Dallas.
Mm-hmm. All right. You want me to go to the next one?
Yeah. All right. This gives here a little bit of more background on the flight plan. And this is from Someone Would Have Talked by our buddy Larry Hancock. And he says, David Ferry associated with someone named Diaz in New Orleans with Clay Shaw and with Lee Oswald. Now, of course, Clay Shaw is alleged to have used the Lambert alias, Clem Lambert or Clay Lambert. By itself, it's just another teaser, but there is another report from the Garrison investigation by a young man named Jules Rico Kimball. Now, folks, we did a show on Jules Rico Kimball some months back. He could not have known about the Gurnius interview. I'll wait till Joe's done scratching his mic all to hell.
No, I had to take my sweater off because I'm hot as hell down here. I'm sorry.
He described a flight that he himself took with David Ferry, a man named Clay Shaw, and another man who was either Mexican or Cuban. A heavyset man, dark, balding in the front, in his 30s, who spoke only in broken English. For what it's worth, that is a perfect description for Herminio Diaz Garcia. The Kimball flight was in a Cessna, which is what the aircraft is on the flight plan. The Gurnius flight plan also lists the aircraft used as a Cessna, and we have photos of David Ferry with a Cessna in company with an associate of Frank Sturgis's on a 1962 planning trip for a Cuban Revolutionary Council training camp in the New Orleans area. In his November 26th interview, David Ferry emphatically denied these charges, that he had been in Texas for about the last 8 or 10 years before his recent road trip to Houston. David Ferry must have been very frightened to lie to the Secret Service. Unfortunately, they were not aware that it was a lie. If they'd had this flight plan, Joe, they would have known it was a lie.
Yes.
That leaves us with some interesting names from New Orleans and a flight to Texas in April of 63 with absolutely no validation. But then another flight from New Orleans was reported with the same pilot, same type of plane, and a familiar passenger. The same type of plane which David Ferry used in survey flights for a proposed CRC training camp in 62 was Ferry shuttling persons of interest and possibly weapons in the spring of 63. Interestingly enough, there is corroboration for just that in a report from the HSCA investigation and an HSCA memo from Jack Moriarty to Cliff Fenton, April 27, 1977. Interesting.
Yeah.
Go. Next slide. So again, when we're talking about aliases here, folks, of course, we know who Heidel was. Lambert, that's Shaw. But now Diaz is a little tougher. And like we were told on the show by our buddy Monkey Morales Jr., Cuban people and people of Latin descent, they have like 10 or 15 last names because they're named after everybody in the freaking family. So when you say Diaz, you know, that could apply to a lot of different people. But we decided to focus on two in particular here. I mean, we know there are others, but these two in particular were accused of being involved in the assassination of JFK. One is Tony Nestor Escuderio Diaz. The other is Herminio Diaz. What's his last name, Joe?
Garcia?
Garcia, yes. All right, next slide.
Yes, with also possibility of maybe Pedro Diaz lands, but he was a pilot himself, so I don't think that, or his brother Marco Diaz lands. Possibly. Who knows?
Possibly. Or
Yeah.
somebody else was using the Diaz alias.
Right.
It's quite possible.
Diaz is like Martin, right?
No, Diaz is like Smith
Yeah.
or Johnson or Jones. Very common last name, middle name, fourth middle name, whatever you want to call it. So there's been the allegations that Lee Harvey Oswald quit Jaggers Child Stovall, that Lee Harvey Oswald was fired from Jaggers Child Stovall, and that he was laid off from Jaggers Child Stovall. So what is the truth here, folks? Now, according to John Armstrong and his research, April 6th was Lee Harvey Oswald's last day of work at Jaggers Child Stovall. The same day, a flight plan was filed from New Orleans to Garland, Texas, with the Federal Aviation Administration. The flight plan listed the captain of the airplane as D. Ferry and 3 passengers as Diaz, Lambert, and Heidel. Okay. Garland, Texas was the same airport where Lee Oswald in May of 1961 met with Ray Carney at Hangar 1 on several occasions over a period of 7 to 9 days. While, of course, Harvey Oswald was in Russia, if you believe in Harvey theory. Now, consequently, Joe, there's some unidentified scafuzzary creeping around General Walker's house on Saturday, April 6th.
Yes.
General Walker's aide, Robert Surrey, boyfriend, whatever you want to call him, was driving in the alley behind Walker's house at 9 p.m. at night and observed 2 white males emerge from a dark-colored brown or purple 1963 Ford with white license plates. After the men realized that a neighbor was watching them, they jumped into the Ford and took off. Surrey followed the car to the downtown area of Dallas and then lost them. On April 10th, the day of the Walker shooting, Surrey told the Dallas police that 2 men he observed on Saturday, April 6th. A year later, June 16th, 1964, Surrey told the Warren Commission that he observed the 2 men on Monday, April 8th, which is important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you all are paying attention, folks.
Yes.
On Monday, April 8th, Ruth Payne visited Marina at the Neely Street apartment, but Lee Harvey Oswald wasn't at home. Well, he damn sure wasn't at work either, Joe.
Definitely not.
According to TEC, now you'll hear TEC a lot tonight. That is the Texas Employment Commission. Mm-hmm. Records say Oswald visited their office that day, but actually, that's not what their records say. But we'll get there, I promise. On Tuesday, April 9th, Walker aide Max Clonch observed a suspicious-looking Cuban in a 1957 Chevy as he drove slowly around Walker's house several times. Now, according to Lee's brother, Robert Oswald, from his book, Lee, My Brother, he says Lee was working full-time. Now, how he knows, I don't fucking know. Because I don't think he was talking to Robert.
No.
Very much in 1963. But this is what he put in his book, so we'll put it out there. He says Lee was working full-time Monday through Friday until April 6th. So during the first couple of weeks he had the rifle, his practice was necessarily limited, chiefly to weekends. On April 7th, the day after he was fired, okay? Now, he alleges Lee was fired from Jaggers Child Stovall. We'll get there. he went out to General Walker's house with the intention of shooting his ass. And this would have been on Sunday, April 7th, allegedly.
Mhm.
Since he was no longer working, he may well have spent some time on April 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th practicing before he went out for the second time on April 10th and actually fired through a window at Walker. But he still was not absolutely familiar with the weapon, and his practice time was limited, and two factors could help account for his failure to hit Walker. Now, the reason Robert Oswald says he remembers all this shit is because April 7th is my birthday. On April 7th, 1963, Lee took his newly purchased rifle to the home of General Walker with the intention of shooting him. April 10th is the birthday of my son, Robert Edward Lee Oswald Jr. On April 10th, 1963, Lee again went out to General Walker's home, stood there in the darkness, and fired through a glass window at the general, allegedly. Now, how Robert Oswald knows this, I don't know.
I had no idea, man. It has to be secondhand. He's just repeating shit.
Or he's being told what to say, and he believes the whole letter that Lee left Marina and all that horse shit. But
Yeah.
next slide, please, sir. Okay. Again, April 6th. According to the testimony of Marguerite, this is Oswald's last day of employment at Jagger's Child Stovall, a Saturday. See also time cards for employment published as CE 1855 in 2311, pages 624 and 625. Jagger's Child Stovall photo department manager also indicates that April 6th was Oswald's last day. Deposition of John Graff. This data, however, defies logic, as Saturday work was overtime. And by that point in time, Oswald's work was viewed as lousy, and Jaggers was not likely to pay him overtime to do virtually nothing correct on his last day of work. Either way, the end of the job coincides with the alleged Walker preparation. With less than 3 weeks, Oswald was in New Orleans. Probably less than that, Joe. But I digress. We'll get there. Dennis Offstein would testify that he mentioned the last day he was at Jagger's Child Stovall. I asked him what he was going to do, where he would go to work, and he said, I don't know. He liked the type of work at the company, and that he would like to stay with this type of work, and he would look around, and if he didn't find anything else, he could always go back to Russia, and sort of laughed about it. But Oswald wasn't joking, because it was around this time that he started writing letters to the Russian embassy in Washington, begging for them to send him and his family back to Russia, which later turned into, well, just send my wife and kids back. I'll stay here.
Yes.
Of note, John Graff, photo department director at Jaggers, would go on to testify that, quote, in the course of carrying these jobs through and back in the darkroom, I began to hear vague rumors of friction between him and the other employees. I began hearing that began noticing that very few people actually liked him. He was very difficult to get along with. Lee was not one to make friends. Then we'll say his personality began to come out. And there was an incident about a Russian newspaper deal, and he said, I studied Russia in Korea. Yet, I don't think Oswald was ever in Korea, but okay. But mostly it was Oswald's piss poor work product. More and more, he was being relied upon to produce the exact work, and there were too many times it was his mistakes were above normal. He was making too many mistakes. Well, my impression of his mistakes were somehow that he just couldn't manage to avoid them. It wasn't that he lacked industry or didn't try. I think he just couldn't. He somehow couldn't manage to handle work that was exact. The deposition of John Graff. April 6th, time unstated, presumably in Dallas. On the date of his termination from Jagger's Child Stovall, Lee Oswald was given an invitation to visit Dennis Offstein and his family. Offstein, because of his abilities with the Russian language, was the closest thing to a friend Oswald had at Jaggers. As far as the written invitation to Oswald, none whatsoever was the response. Apparently, Oswald did not go. He said, fuck you, Dennis.
Yeah.
Next slide, please, Joe. Yeah. Joe, if you want to tell some people about this scafuza?
Yeah, so John Caesar Grossi, who we covered recently, also worked as at Jagger Childs Stovall. Got that? But his actual name was Jack L. I think it's Leslie, right? Bowen, and he was the one who co-signed Lee Harvey Oswald's library card for Dallas.
Yes.
And we went over his criminal record. I mean, you could see it here: check forgery, impersonation, Dyer Act a couple times, armed robbery, violation of parole.
This is a lifelong con man and burglar and drinker and just a con artist, basically.
Right, and he kind of went out of memory from our last show we did on him. He kind of FBI was looking for him for a few years, I think until 66 or something, right?
Well, no, he was finally arrested in 1970 or 71. So they were looking for him for a while.
Right, but this is who Oswald had signed his library card. So was his best friend Mr. Grossi or Jack Leslie Bowen, or was it Offstein? I've never heard of any relationship with Oswald and Offstein, but that's besides the point.
And if Oswald is forging documents, like government documents, at Jagger's Child Stovall, he likely learned it from this guy.
Right.
And they probably made alias cards for this guy as well.
Yeah. His fingerprints are still redacted, I believe. You can see that part on the bottom right-hand corner. And I'll let you take this. We'll get to the backyard photo. The famous hunter of fascists. Ha ha. Right? Which was DeMorenshield's copy, correct?
Yep. So on April the 5th, according to Walt Brown and his master analytic chronology, time unstated, Lee Oswald puts the 5 Roman numeral 463 on a print of a photo from the backyard with him holding a rifle and newspapers and wearing a pistol in his holder. The photo, along with English-Russian photograph records loaned to Oswald by George DeMorenshield, was mailed to DeMorenshield's address shortly before he left the United States for Haiti. The package was stored, according to DeMorenshield, and the photo was only discovered in 1967, after they got back from Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
This particular backyard photo had the notation in Russian, ha ha ha, hunter of fascists, and from an examination of the handwriting, compared to other samples published or privately owned, it's highly likely that Marina wrote the caption and not Oswald. Editor's hypothesis, which, if correct, would have seemed nearly as funny a few days later when it is alleged the hunter of fascists took a shot at General Walker. It is also to be recalled at occasional points through this narrative that when Marina was first taken to the Dallas police station, she denied ever having seen Oswald's rifle, despite the fact that she photographed him with it. This created a serious catch-22 for the Warren Commission, as they had Marina admitting to important evidence against her husband with respect to a gun that she never saw, excepting the inch or so visible at the butt end of the blanket. So, yeah, allegedly, this photo was signed at some point, dated by Oswald on April 5th, but not given to DeMorenshield on April 5th. Rather, he put it in amongst some Russian English phonographic records that George DeMorenshield had loaned to him. He mailed them to DeMorenshield's address shortly before he left the United States for Haiti. Now, DeMorenshield would leave for Haiti I believe, sometime at the end of April or beginning of May. So it wasn't too much longer after this.
Yeah, it was within a
Maybe
week
even
or
sooner.
two. It
Maybe
was in
even
a
sooner.
yeah, it was in a week or two of Oswald leaving for
Yeah.
New Orleans officially.
Because it says, to my friend George from Lee Oswald, 5 Roman numeral 463. That's how Russians wrote dates.
Yeah, that's at the bottom. Let me see if I can
Yeah.
get this here. That's
Don't-
at the bottom corner here.
That does not mean May the 4th. That means the 5th day of the 4th month in 63. Next slide,
Oof.
sir.
Oh man, this is getting interesting, sir.
All right, Joe, if you would get us into the Texas Employment Commission.
Sure. So we're going to be going through some of the Helen Cunningham exhibits, who was an employee at the Texas Employment Commission, who allegedly, dealt with Oswald, right? And she says the green ink entry of the facing side means 10/30/62. They're talking a little later. The succeeding entry being 4/8/63 records the fact that Oswald came to the commission on that date seeking employment, he having lost his position at Jaggers Childs Stovall. The succeeding entry, 4/12/63, which would have been that Friday. Remember, 4/8 was the Monday. Walker shooting Wednesday, records the fact that Oswald visited the commission offices in further pursuit of employment. The succeeding entry, which is in green crayon, 5/8/63, when considered with the entry dated 5/3/63 in the referral section of the exhibit, records the fact that on that day, Oswald was mailed a call-in card for a possible referral to Texas Power and Light Company for a position as meter reader, but failed to respond. The next entry on the face of Cunningham exhibit number 1A records the fact that his case was reactivated as of that date, and the final entry, 10/17, which is right around when he got the job at the TSBD in green crayon, records the closing of his case due to him having obtained employment. This entry is related to the final entry in the referral section of Cunningham exhibit number 1A, which recites under the heading remarks that at 10:30 a.m. Oh no, that's irrelevant. So here we have on the top right corner here. Let me see if I can zoom in. This is the card that was filled out by Lee Harvey Oswald on the 12th, right? That Friday, 2 days after the Walker shooting. Okay? Making his claim. Rob, would you think that there would be something like this on April 8th, maybe, when he went in?
Well, yeah. If he went in to the Employment Commission on the 8th, which is Monday, they would have had him fill this out then. Now,
Right.
blow this up a little bit more if you can, Joe.
Yep.
Now, at the bottom here, everybody needs to take notice to this.
Yep.
Now, we've heard up until now, to this very point, that Oswald's last day was the 6th, which was Saturday, which would have been all overtime for him.
Yeah.
He states his last day was April 5th, which would be Friday, 1963. And I was laid off by John Graff, head of photography and art department, due to the lack of work. Okay. So he wasn't fired. He didn't quit. He was supposedly laid off because of lack of work. Yet, Joe, we've gone over, and I don't know if they're in this thing somewhere, but we've gone over Oswald's work records for Jaggers Childs Stovall. This son of a bitch was working 15 to 20 hours of overtime every week from the time he started.
Yes.
And he
It
was at
is-
Charles Stovall since October of 62.
Yes, his longest job, most stable job by far.
That he
Like
had upon returning to the United States. And he was working 15 or 20 hours overtime every week. There was one week he had to have worked every day because he got so much overtime.
Right. Yeah. It's not on this PowerPoint, but our members only show you went through his paychecks and the amount of hours he worked per week. And
Yeah.
he was working significant amount of overtime. So what is going on
Sure, he
there?
wasn't the only one. And if he was working all this overtime, but he supposedly sucked at his job, Joe, if you were Lee Harvey Oswald's boss, would you be paying this guy all this overtime if he sucked at his job?
No, if I put my manager hat on, not at all.
Or would you reward your best employees with the overtime?
In theory, that would be true.
Now, maybe there's more people working overtime than just Oswald. We don't know. But if there was, then how can they say that he's laid off due to lack of work when he's consistently working 15 or 20 hours overtime every week? And I'm sure he's not the only person there doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So how can they justify a layoff for a lack of work? And then you have Graff trashing him, saying his work sucks, and he kept screwing up, making mistakes. You know, you don't reward people like that with overtime, especially on a Saturday.
Yeah. After you've, if you're about to fire him or fired him already, it doesn't make sense.
Nothing about this makes sense.
Nothing. Do you want me to read this under that?
Yeah, because now,
Or
just
you
to
can.
preface this, I can't see it. You're going to have to blow it up. Let me preface this by saying that confidential informant Dallas T1 was likely Harry Holmes. Remember, folks, that the FBI and or the CIA were opening Oswald's mail. I think at this time it was the FBI.
Right. Yeah.
So
I could read it if you'd like.
I got it.
Okay.
So we have confidential informant Dallas T1, again, likely Harry Holmes, the postal inspector. And how he's getting all this information? Through the mail. Dallas T1 advised that on April 29th, 63, Oswald had on April 12th initiated a claim for unemployment insurance at the Commerce Street office of the Texas Employment Commission in Dallas. And the IB1 form filled on April 29, 63 was a renewal of the claim filed in Texas.
Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
Initiated on April 12th, not April 8th.
Correct.
Got it.
Dallas T1 stated that insomuch as this case was an interstate case, an interstate supplementary form, IB-10 was sent to Texas for the purpose of classifying Oswald as to his classifications assignment. He was classified in Group C, which means that it was questionable as to whether or not he would be employed soon because his work history indicated that the likelihood of a continuing question as to his new availability, his attachment to a particular area in the labor market, that he moved around a lot and had irregular employment. Dallas T1 stated that the monetary eligibility determination date was set as April 16th, 1963, at which time, according to the TEC, he was ineligible for unemployment insurance, which was later resolved by the submission of Form IB1, submitted to Texas, dated April 29th, blah, 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 blah. And he was found to be eligible to receive $33 a week on unemployment insurance compensation. Again, this is all gleaned by the postal inspector, likely Harry Holmes, opening the Texas Employment Commission, the mail, to Lee Harvey Oswald in New Orleans. or that was going to New Orleans.
Yes.
People were watching his mail. They were opening his mail, and they were reporting about even these details.
Yeah. And yeah, it seems to me he did one of these forms to say, I have moved out of state, but I am still eligible for unemployment.
Right.
And
This guy's letting the FBI know all this shit, right? Harry Holmes.
Oh man. By the way, at the DPD on Sunday, November 24th. So, hold on. Hold on. I might have messed up some of this, but
these are just files from the Texas Employment Commission. This is Lee Harvey Oswald's master file. Basically, instead of creating a new file every time something happened with his employment or unemployment or something, or change of address, anything like that, they had a master file that they would alter information. That's why this is filled out with pencil. Okay. Because there, as we'll see here in a second, there is instances of things being erased and changed.
Yes.
We don't need to go through it with a fine tooth comb, but yeah.
So
here we do.
This is the Linedex, which is a process for recording contact with the applicant, if that's the right word.
Yeah.
And I believe the one on the left is Exhibit 1, Cunningham Exhibit 1. And on the right is Cunningham Exhibit 1A. And you might notice some differences. Now, you could see the top date on the left side here is 10/9, which, kind of lines up here. It's a little more, maybe it was copied better, right? You have 10/10/62, 10/10/62. Okay. You have a blank space under 10/10/62.
Conveniently.
Yes. But on the right side, you have 10/30/62. And of course, the dates we are really interested in is 4/8/63, which would have been that Monday after he was fired from Jaggers on Friday or Saturday, the 5th or the 6th.
Or laid off.
Yes, laid off. Sorry. Kind of the same, although the 8s look a little different to me. Maybe it's the copying. I don't know. The 3s look a little different to me too, to be honest. And this, I'm sorry.
And the 4. All three numbers looks very dissimilar.
Yes. So
I mean, they look very similar, but if you really, really go at them,
yeah, there's much more space between this 4 than this 4.
Yeah, and allegedly,
and the 8, yeah, and the 3.
When something happened, like
and the 6,
something, I guess, major happens. This Miss Cunningham, or Helen Cunningham, said that she wrote with a green crayon. Okay. The date, which is why it is not in pencil. All the ones that are not in pencil are supposedly in green crayon.
Right. And of course, there might have been some contact with the Texas Employment Commission on April the 8th, but was it a call or was it in person? Because why don't we have his unemployment claim, like we showed a couple slides ago, for the 8th? And then, even more sus, the next line down, you got 4/12/63, which is, of course, the date he filled out that unemployment claim. And on the right, you have 41263. Also a little, oh, it's the same, but there's a C, and it is X'd out. Now, C, I believe, means call, but this is X'd out.
Right, because Oswald was actually there. He had to be there in person to fill out that form that we just saw before.
Right. We have a blank space in the next column on the left-hand side here. And
Now,
this is
what makes sense is if that Monday, the 8th, what would make sense is that Oswald wouldn't go there in person. He would call them on the phone and just let them know, hey, look, I just got fired or laid off from Jagger's Child, where I was working. I just wanted to let you know, what do I need to do? And they probably said, well,
come in.
come in and see us. Maybe they set an appointment up for the 12th for him to come in there. Maybe he told them that he couldn't come in till the 12th. We don't know. But he was definitely in the office on the 12th and likely not in the office on the 8th, or else he would have done all this paperwork then.
Right. And like the first entry you see here on the top, where you see that 10-9-62, right? It's a little fainter on the left, a little less faint on the right, or yeah. In this column here and this column here, there is nothing written that I could see, like no faintness. And I blew this up. So
How they would conveniently skip lines for
it's weird.
future use to backdate things blows my mind.
Yeah. You have the 10-3-63 on the next line. You have 10-3-63 on the corresponding Lindex record on the right. Okay, that lines up. Below that, you have a blank spot under 10-3. On the right, you have something which is a call, right? They're saying he called this date, or I think we have the explanation of all these later. So what shenanigans, what scafuzzary are they pulling here? I don't know, to be honest. But
You look at DeLuga. Just looked at 4863 with crossed eyes. The left and right match perfectly. Yes, you might need to do that for them to actually match perfectly. Yes, we understand. I mean, they look very similar, but if you look at the 4 on the right, there's much more empty white space in between the two uprights of the 4 than the one on the left. Same with the 8. There's more space in the 8 than on the left.
And the 3 and the 6.
And the 6. And the 3.
3 is a little weirder.
I don't know.
And the C crossed out on the 12th. So there's something fishy going on here.
Yeah.
We think.
We thinks.
So do you want to go to this next? Is this the order you put it in?
Yeah, this is where Mr. Adams, this is the guy at the Texas Employment Commission, is pointing out the significance of the Lindex strip.
Right, which we just showed you, right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to go back. Both, this is the Lindex strip. This is the Lindex strip.
They also look very different. Basically, the receptionist has a listing of all the applicants who are currently registered with our office. Then for each applicant, there are one or more application cards covering a primary code. An occupational code, which is that code in which we feel he is best qualified. The additional cards being for secondary codes or other jobs for which he might be qualified for, or which he may have had before.
Had performed in the past.
Yeah. So that there would be one or more application cards, a Lindex strip, and the counseling records if the individual had been counseled. But basically, what this means is instead of having 20,000 different cards, application cards, they would have these Lindex strips that they would put on the side of the application card.
Right.
That
A fit.
they could
Yeah.
update and copy and do backdate and yeah.
Oof. Then they talk more about this. I think we might skip this a little bit.
Yeah, it's boring.
Yeah. Were photostatic copies made? Do you know? Mr. Jenner asks Mr. Robert Adams. That I do not know, sir. Apparently, I did talk to him on the phone several times because the card indicates that I had done so, and I do not recall. Oh, convenient. Mr. Jenner, well, do you recall when you were interviewed on the FBI November 27th, 63? Yes, sir. And then they talk about the TSBD stuff.
And the next slide tells about how, well, that conversation continued. Basically says that they recorded it with a C if there was a call. Hence, that's how they know.
Right. Exactly. Right. Which is, and, there was no C, for example, on the 8th, but the
Right.
C was crossed out. I mean, then you have, this is the Burkham, who is also an employee of the Texas Employment Commission. This is Exhibit 1 of his little exhibits. And you could see this is the form that he filled out on the 16th, I believe it was. No, it might have been the 12th. This might have been the same one you had before.
No, it's the 16th.
Okay.
This is one of the forms that Harry Holmes was referring to that got mailed to Louisiana. If you see at the top, it's got Louisiana code and the form.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So you see the April 5th, the April 6th date here, right? Then we go.
Wait. Whoa. Go back. What's interesting here is if you look there where it says Jagger's Child Stovall Printing Company, look how many employees they have there.
200.
200. And they consistently have Oswald working 15 to 20 hours of overtime every week. And he sucks. And they had nobody else to give overtime to. Bullshit. Something is definitely fishy.
Yes. We go to another card. Oh, this is the one we read before, which says the 5th, right? Claim date the 12th, which would have been that Friday, 2 days after the Walker shooting. We have another TEC document. This is the Burkham exhibit continued. And we have the claim date being the 12th, not the 8th again. And you see his Neely Street address crossed out for the New Orleans one. Then this is a document from November 26th, 63, which would have been 2 days after Lee was killed. On April 12th, 63, Oswald filed a claim in our Dallas office listing Jagger Childs Stovall as his last employer. He showed that he was separated on April 5th. I have a red arrow pointing to that, 63, because I was laid off by John Craves, head of the photography and art department, due to lack of work. He showed his occupation to be a photographer and his age to be 23. He listed his address as Neely Street. Okay. Then we have another Burcham exhibit, claim date on the 12th. Again, not the 8th. Yeah, let's stop there for a second. And before we get into some of the church committee and INS documents, maybe show some comments if you're cool with that.
Yeah. Let me remove that.
Yes.
Yeah, do you see any good?
Yeah, I saw a couple of them, but our starring is not up to par yet. Yeah, the blooper was fun. It was good stuff. I'm glad people enjoyed it. Rob surprised me with that.
I did. I couldn't resist.
Hey, it's funny, man. I mean, we have bloopers, but we did it in one take, and Rob did an amazing job editing. So,
Yeah. So basically, what we're trying to paint a picture of here, folks, is could Oswald have been on this flight with David Ferry on April the 8th, which would have been Monday, right? Yeah.
mhm.
Monday, April the 8th. Now, the evidence so far that we have to show this is the fact that Ruth Payne visited Marina on April 8th and Lee Oswald wasn't there. He was allegedly at work, as he is allegedly has not told Marina yet that he got fired or was let go. Allegedly.
So that brings me to a good point because I want to do what we like to do here recently, Rob. Let's do a thought experiment.
I'm down.
Okay.
Color
I
me
am
in.
I am Lee Harvey Scafuza. I have a kid. Marina, my wife, is not happy with, her living situation in the United States. And the job I held for the longest time since coming back from Russia, I was just fired from on April 5th or 6th.
Yep.
He comes home with a baby and a baby on the way. And he goes, "Hey, babe." I'm sure he didn't say babe. Maybe there's a Russian translation for
Hey,
that.
bitch.
I just got fired. Knowing their relationship, do you think a fight would have ensued?
Yes, 100%.
Right.
1,000%. Now, if you remember, Joe, they were living at Neely Street in Dallas, right at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Neely Street is an interesting address. This is where supposedly the backyard photos were taken. And this is also where their landlord, George, got reports that Oswald was beating his wife, drinking heavily, although I'm pretty sure it was probably Marina, the one drinking heavily, not Oswald.
That's true.
So them getting in a knockdown drag out, I mean, you have to figure if what month was Rachel born? October?
I believe it was October. Yes.
All right, so that's the 10th month. So if you go back 9 months, you're back around January, end of January, beginning of February, when she would have likely gotten pregnant. So by this time, she's not really that pregnant. If she even knew she was pregnant at this point, she would have been like 2 or 3 months pregnant. She probably knew, didn't have her period anymore or whatever. Maybe had a little bump starting to go,
Right.
but she wasn't like full on preggo at this point. So her hormones are probably all fucked up. Oswald comes home Friday. He's like, they let me go. Shit. Now, if you're Lee Harvey Oswald, all right, you're in Texas. Probably didn't like Texas very much. That's where his mom is. who's an insufferable bitch, and his brother is, who
Who
he doesn't
barely
talk.
talks to. Yeah.
And he was not having good luck with on the job front. He just got fired.
Right. From his longest job,
Yeah.
most stable
And
job.
he's been in Texas ever since he came back from Russia. So chances are they got in a fight. And he's like, all right, fuck this. I'm out. I'm going to New Orleans tomorrow, and I'm going to check out the job scene, talk to my aunt and uncle, see if we can find a place to stay, and we're getting the hell out of Texas and starting over in New Orleans. I'll be back. Don't
Maybe
tell anybody anything different. Don't tell anybody I got fired or let go. You know, and I'm guessing that's how the conversation went around. And if that's the case, and Oswald hopped on a bus Saturday morning, he made it to New Orleans by Saturday evening. For sure.
probably via Shreveport. Yes. Pass through there.
Yeah, it probably took him 6 or 7 hours to get there via bus. But he likely would have made it there sometime Saturday evening. So, does that make it possible for him to have been on the plane on Monday at 1 o'clock with David Ferry and Lambert and Diaz to heading back to Texas for something? Now, something big happens 2 days later. So, you can only imagine, okay, that if Oswald knew Ferry better than everybody thinks that he did, okay, and he goes back to New Orleans and he looks up his old pal Dave, may or may not have rubbed his thighs as a young boy. And they got to talking, and they come up with a plan to take out General Walker, or General Walker was kind of in the know with people in New Orleans. Certain people in New Orleans. Definitely Bannister. Definitely Jack Martin. Definitely Joe Newborough. Definitely Kent Courtney.
Leander Perez.
Definitely Leander Perez. So maybe they came up with this half-cocked idea to simulate an assassination attempt on General Walker. Or they really did figure, well, we're going to take this fascist motherfucker out before he turns into Hitler, you know?
Yeah.
Don't know. Either way, it doesn't really matter. But we'll get there, I promise. So, Joe, next slide, please.
Sure. So now we'll get to some church committee testimony, and I'll let you go, Rob.
Okay. So, I realize you're going to need more proof. Was Oswald in New Orleans at the beginning of April, not the end of April? Okay? You asked for proof. I'm going to give it to you a couple times. The first one we have here is a report from the INS. Okay? An Immigration and New Naturalization Service inspector testified before the church committee that he is absolutely certain that he interviewed Lee Harvey Oswald in a New Orleans jail cell sometime before April 10th, 63, because that's the date that he was transferred out of New Orleans.
Yes. The day of the Walker shooting.
Okay? This is a report from an INS officer who knew the date that he left New Orleans. And it was before that. Shortly before that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes. And I want to harp on the words of not. I think I interviewed Lee Harvey Oswald in New Orleans. I am
Absolutely
absolutely certain.
certain.
Strong words.
Yeah. Now, down at the bottom, it's bracketed there. Testimony of INS Inspector 121175. The inspector doesn't recall whether on this occasion he went to the
Police station
in response to a routine call, or whether he learned that Oswald was claiming to be an alien during a routine visit. So he doesn't remember why he got summoned to the jail, but we'll get there. Joe, next slide. All right. The inspector is now not certain whether Oswald was using that particular name at the time. He is certain that Oswald was claiming to be a Cuban alien and that he interviewed Oswald to verify or disprove this status. The inspector, neither recalls what Oswald said or what languages he talked in. He does not recall anything unusual about Oswald's dress or demeanor and believes that he quickly ascertained that Oswald was not a Cuban, at which time he would have left Oswald in his jail cell, or likely told him, turn this motherfucker loose, get him out of here. This is a giant waste of fucking time. Right?
Mhm.
So Schweiker asked him, well, what if the person is claiming to be a foreigner and he isn't? Now, how do you run that down? Inspector says, well, I've never run into a case where a guy claimed to be a foreigner and he was actually a United States citizen, where he didn't break individually, because when the immigration service comes into play and you advise them, if you are in the United States illegally and you're subject to deportation and these kinds of things. So in all probability, something like that would have happened in Oswald's incident. He said, yeah, I'm sure. So again, likely cut loose, giant waste of time. Next slide. Now we turn to Wendell Roach, who was a very interesting church committee thing.
INS officer as well.
Yeah. Wendell Roach mentions the name of Ron Smith, a Border Patrol inspector with the New Orleans station of the INS, who received a call from the New Orleans police about Oswald being arrested. Oswald claimed to be Russian, insisting he spoke only Russian. He was released when he admitted he was American. He was released when he admitted he was American. The story Smith finally told the church committee was that Oswald claimed to be a Cuban, but it makes more sense that he claimed to be a Russian and spoke Russian and likely gave him a Heidel ID or some dumb shit. And they threatened to deport his ass. And then he's like, just kidding. I'm really an American citizen.
And listen, we know Oswald lied, right? Based on the August 9th or 10th interview, right? On a bunch of things. We know Oswald stretched the truth a lot. I could see Oswald doing something like this. Right. It's not stretch credulity.
Yeah, I can see him fucking with them, and then they're like, well, we'll just deport you back to Russia then. And they're like, oh, well, wait a minute. Well, hold on. I'm really an American. They're like, get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And that is from A Farewell to Justice by Joan Mellon. Now, on August 9th, when Oswald was arrested in New Orleans, he also told the arresting officers that he was Cuban-born. Smith had interviewed Oswald on April 10th. Okay. Now, God love her, Joan Mellon, she does get some things wrong, including names and dates very frequently.
Yes.
So very doubtful that Smith interviewed Oswald on April 10th. It was likely before that.
Mm-hmm.
Having gone down to see Oswald in jail to verify or disprove this status. In 1963, both INS inspectors testified INS had responsibility for surveilling certain Cuban groups in New Orleans, an assignment from the DOJ. Smith had an office in, Roach began. Then the interviewer suddenly cuts him off. The interview of James Smith, not Ron Smith anymore, of U.S. Customs remains classified. Wendell Roach's too. observed Oswald's going into the offices of Ferry's group and said Oswald was known to be one of the men in the group. So here you have corroboration that maybe Oswald and Ferry were closer than you think they were, folks.
Yep. Interesting that they cut him off too. That is crazy.
By the way, me and Joe did check, and apparently Wendell Roach and this James Smith or Ron Smith, whoever, still remains classified, meaning that it has not been released in the past 20 years since Joan Mellon wrote her book.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you just did, don't do that anymore because it throws the screen offline.
Okay.
I don't know what you did, but
I just removed it from the screen because I put our beautiful faces up to talk.
oh. Well, I'm done talking. Next slide. This would go much smoother if I had control of everything.
We tried that.
Yeah.
And then we have the Warren Commission testimony of Francis Martello, who was kind of like the intelligence guy, detective of the NOPD, New Orleans Police Department. And when he went to go see Lee Harvey Oswald, he produced a number of IDs. Upon my request, he removed the papers and I examined them. He had in his wallet a number of miscellaneous papers, cards, and identification items. The only ones I felt were of any significance were Social Security card, and it goes on and on. But no mention of pretending to be Cuban, pretending to be Russian.
But again, Martello interviewed him on August 9th, not in April.
Right. No, but I'm saying like this is not the same incident.
Right. It is not the same incident. Correct. Different date, different circumstances.
Right. If Martello said, he was trying to pretend he was Cuban or Russian, that changes things a little bit. But
Martello doesn't say they had to bring in INS or customs to deal with Oswald.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. I'll let you go here.
All right. This falls back to Reasonable Doubt by Henry Hurt. We did an episode on this some whiles back, but it's relevant because he ran into a guy named Robert Easterling. He told him a fantastic story, folks. Now, Robert Easterling said that he was not among the witnesses at the Havana bar that night, so this is secondhand information, but Easterling claims that he first encountered Oswald during the spring, that's significant, or summer of 1963. He's not sure the date. Easterling insists that he witnessed an incident involving Oswald and the Havana bar that is unrecorded in standard accounts of Oswald's New Orleans activities. Easterling claims he came upon a sidewalk fracas on Decatur Street near the doorway to the Havana bar. Several Cubans were kicking and stomping the shit out of a young man Easterling came to know as Oswald. As Easterling stood watching, some guy named Riviera, but not his real name, rushed out of the bar with a broken beer bottle and forced the men to stop beating Oswald's ass. Police officers, Joe, arrived about the time the scuffle ended. Easterling claimed that Oswald got up and without any comment walked away. Easterling did not learn what the altercation was about. Okay, so we have the police showing up and Oswald getting up and walking away. Mm-hmm. Now, he doesn't say that he went off with the police, but one can infer that if the police show up and somebody is bleeding on this, or laying on the sidewalk outside of a bar, chances are they're going to get arrested. Okay, so Oswald likely got up and left with the police, right?
Mm-hmm.
And possibly went and told them that he was Russian and gave him Russian ID, and then they said, "Okay, we'll just deport you." And then he said, "I'm just kidding. I'm really." So now we get into the Ron story, right? Ron Smith. Ron was a border patrol inspector with the New Orleans station in 62 and 63, transferring to Washington in April of 63. Now, he told us earlier his last day was April 10th, so it had to be before that.
Mm-hmm.
On seemingly uneventful day, he received a not so unusual radio call requesting verification of an alien. The first precinct of the NOPD, the police department, same one that showed up to the Havana bar, had an individual in custody who claimed to be Cuban or Russian. Responding to the call, Ron proceeded to the first precinct where he interviewed or interrogated a prisoner. In fact, not sure if booked or aware of charges, named Lee Harvey Oswald, who was claiming to be Cuban. Ron does not recall if he was speaking Spanish or Russian. He has no recollection of his own of Oswald speaking Russian. Ron could not give me a date, the names of any persons at the jail, nor the specifics or even generalities as to what Oswald said. After 5 minutes of interrogation, though, Oswald admitted that he was American and Smith took off. He does not recall discussing this event with anyone, including co-workers. However, when Oswald's picture hit the press, he immediately recognized him and told his wife, "That is the guy I interviewed in New Orleans." Ron admitted frequent contact with Orest Pena, who happened to be the owner of the Havana bar. Pena's brother told him that Orest was working for or was going to work for the FBI. He also recalls Customs David Smith. Now, we've all heard the allegations that Orest Pena was an FBI informant for Warren DeBreeze. He went public and called DeBreeze out in public in the early 70s, and DeBreeze denied it.
And didn't he threaten him too?
Yeah, but I believe it. I believe it.
I think so. Yeah.
Next slide, please, Joseph.
And yeah, just to add a little point here, he received a call that was not unusual, right? So he probably received these type of calls daily or multiple times weekly, right? Of, hey, we have this guy, we have this.
We need you to come down here and talk to him.
Yeah, we have this scafuza at, we need to know.
He probably took control or custody of him, and that was that.
And if he's not, then why am I going to waste up writing a report?
Right. That's likely why no report was written. They turned him loose and said, "Get the fuck out of here," type of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And the INS is really interesting because it doesn't seem to me like they have a vested interest, say like the FBI or CIA would, right? They're kind of just, they're monitoring Cubans, they're monitoring Ferry, they're, taking these type of calls. They kind of seem to me like an agency that is pretty objective, not in any cahoots type of thing,
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. So here's where it gets interesting.
Yes.
Oh, we all know Oswald wrote this letter to V.T. Lee on August the 1st, 1963. And it describes in this letter a street fracas or fight, if you will, with some Cubans who he calls worms or gusanos. Okay. Now, the actual street fracas on Canal Street between him and Brignier and company would not happen for another 8 days. It would not happen until August 9th.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Oswald wrote this letter. It's dated August 1st. He mailed it on the 4th. Okay? So either Oswald has a crystal ball and he knows that this interaction with Brignier is going to happen. So he goes ahead and tells V.T. Lee about it. Or Oswald is describing an entirely different fracas altogether that happened to him before. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, to further corroborate things, Joe, you see it at the bottom. It's an FBI document, DOJ document. And it says Floyd Hepting, a port agent with the American Radio Association on Canal Street telephonically advised the New Orleans office on December 13th, 63, that on that date, while riding in a Liberty Bell cab number 1008, he talked to the driver regarding the Oswald matter. He said the cab driver told him that he was in the vicinity of the Havana bar located near Canal in Decatur approximately 9 months ago. Do the math, people. 9 months ago from December.
It's pretty close to April.
And witnessed Oswald and several Cubans involved in an argument which appeared to be leading to a fight. The fracas was broke up. They even call it a fucking fracas. The fracas was broke up by Al, in quotation marks, the New Orleans Police Department's best officer in the area.
Beat officer.
Oh, whatever.
No, I'm just... Yeah. I could see it closer than you. Let me go to the bottom here.
It's the exact same document.
It's the exact same thing. Okay.
It's just easier to read up top. But
I see.
that just shows you it's from an actual DOJ FBI document. It's
Right.
not just something I clipped out of a fucking book.
Right. And it's not... Listen, you're talking December to August, right? August, September, November, December, 4 months. Not 9 months. It's a big discrepancy, okay?
Yeah, and the
It's
further
not- it's
back
not-
you go in the year, the less your memory is going to be accurate to some random fucking happening, right? So he's approximating from December 15th, roughly, that was 9 months ago when this happened. And he's not too far off. He's off by a couple weeks,
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah. And again, a port agent, not some scafuza who's drinking and drunk at the Havana bar, right?
Yeah. But again, how much more corroboration do you need, people, that Oswald was in fucking New Orleans the weekend after he got let go from Jagger's Child Stovall, which makes it a lot more palatable that he could have been on this plane with David Ferry on April 8th back to Dallas.
Yes.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Next slide, Joe.
This is yeah, you're like you said, how much more corroboration do you need? But I had to throw this in, of course. Did General Walker send John T. Martin to film Lee in New Orleans? We've talked about this at length. John T. Martin, huge fan of General Walker, goes to General Walker's house, is inside his house, right? This is the bullet hole right here. These are from the Shackelford slides. And then he catches Lee Oswald here with Bernier and some other scafuzas.
Now, the significance of this, Joe, not because this is a totally separate incident.
Right, of course, yes.
The significance of this is that
foreknowledge.
Well, no, not necessarily. Well, kind of. But as you see in the August 1st letter to VT Lee, as he's describing the first fracas, right? It's almost the exact same scenario. He gets in a fight with some Cubans, right? The police show up. Oswald is quote unquote arrested, right? The one difference is that nobody was there to catch it on video.
Right.
No TV stations, no home movie buffs, no young smooth boys with video cameras, home movie cameras.
Yeah, Doyle. Too.
So, could the second fracas have been set up or set up to be videoed by General Walker, who just happens to have been shot at on April 10th by Oswald, allegedly?
Right.
So, interesting. Now, you might think, what does General Walker have to do with New Orleans? Well, blow this up a little, Joe. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but we have here an intelligence report from the Louisiana State Police about General Edwin Walker, and they were watching him. In fact, they watched him every time that motherfucker came to New Orleans. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
They watched where he went, who he talked to, who he met with. We have here. Boom. The above subject had in Judge Leander Perez's office in the National American Bank building. So we have here.
You skipped over of a mysterious meeting, which is an interesting.
Well, yeah, a mysterious meeting. Now, Leander Perez was again like the Jim Garrison of the Plaquemines Parish, right?
Right. Different
A big
parish.
swinging dick. He owned a lot of land. He was a land baron, huge racist, but tons of money in land and minerals and oil and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And on November 20th, 1963, okay, this is just a couple days before the Kennedy assassination, you have a meeting with Leander Perez. Okay. Now, moving on down the line here, later, there was also a meeting at the National Bank of Commerce in the National Bank of Commerce garage building. While I was not in the meeting room proper, I noticed several of the people that were in attendance. I noted that especially one, a Joseph Newborough, was there. And who the fuck is that? Well, I'll tell you who that is. That is Guy Bannister's old private investigator partner. Okay? That's who that is. Let's see. Mr. Manning asked me to see. What are you doing, Joe?
I'm trying to help you.
You're making it smaller. You're making it even smaller.
Well, okay, Mr. Manning. Okay, sorry. There you go.
Ay, que volta. They talk about some other scafuzzas that he's meeting with. At 2 a.m., General Walker is still in the lobby, and he went upstairs at about 2 a.m. on 11/21/63. Late night party with General Walker.
Yeah. You only imagine how that went.
Yeah.
You could use your imagination there, listeners.
So he finally, General Walker had another meeting and had approximately 90 people there. I talked to General Walker for quite some time, making his acquaintance, and did not leave the hotel until about 1 a.m. But I was unable to learn of anything of importance. There was evidently no further activity on the general's part, and I was unable to learn at what time the general left the city. All right, next page. Not next slide, but next page.
Oh, sorry. James just said, leave it alone, Joe. I'm trying to help.
So he goes and talks about Newborough again, and then he says Mr. Newborough was also an expert in jujitsuism. Jujitsuism.
That's interesting.
Mr. Newborough was also very friendly with one Jack Martin. Now, don't think for a second, old Joe Newborough wasn't a big boy, and if he knew how to roll, well, tough customer. Mr. Newborough was also friendly with one Jack Martin. Mr. Jack Martin is the man who filed a petition with the state Central Committee to disqualify Mr. Gramelian as a candidate for Attorney General, blah, 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 blah. Now, again, folks, the Kennedy assassination hasn't happened yet, but we have General Walker under surveillance in New Orleans with two, not one, but two of Guy Bannister's cohorts.
Mm-hmm.
Who was seen around Guy Bannister's office in the summer of 63? Oh, Lee Harvey Oswald, David Ferry. These guys all know each other. They all share the same ideals, goals, things like that. So we're making some connections here. Things are not out of the ordinary, or out of the realm of possibility, I should say. Next slide, Joe. All right. Left side blow.
That's what she said.
All right. Now let's talk about William Duff. All right. This is General Walker's Batman.
Right. The only official suspect in the
Yeah.
Walker shooting.
Yes.
Official.
Now, an interview with William Duff on May 25th, 64, Duff claimed evidence of an association between Jack Ruby and General Walker. All right. He claimed that during the period of December 62 through March 63, while Duff was employed by General Walker and resided in his home, Ruby visited, on the basis of about once a month, each time in the company of two unidentified white males arriving in a Ford car, not further described. Duff claimed identification of Ruby through photographs, having heard him addressed only as Jack. The others were described as follows: a white male, mid-30s, 5'11", weighing 145, dark receding hair, said to be a member of the John Birch Society. Number 2 was a white male, late 40s, heavy build, dark complexion. Duff advised the three had always convened with Walker in the living room at the Walker residence, and Duff at no time overheard their conversations. So we have William Duff alleging that Ruby was meeting with General Walker. All right, next page there, not next slide, next page.
Oh, sorry, my fat fingers are messing it up. Oh no, touch screens, brah.
All right, over here we have a letter written by General Edwin Walker in November of 1991, Joe.
Okay.
All right, not too long before he died.
Right.
What he says here is interesting. A common assassin with a dead president, commander-in-chief, is an ugly experience since 1963. The president went to Dallas knowing and protecting his November assassin, Lee H. Oswald, from prosecution for his April crime, the attempted assassination of former general working at his desk in his Dallas home at 9 p.m. on April 10th. The Kennedy protection included an early morning secret release of the prime suspect, Lee H. Oswald, from Dallas police custody on Kennedy orders on April the 11th. The president did not live to know what he knew, or to know that he knew his assassin, but everyone else lived to know that he did, and that his assassin could not be prosecuted for the November crime because of his Kennedy protection from the prosecution for his April crime. The law does not provide for protection and prosecution at the same time. Only by the election of a new government could the protection be eliminated. The common assassin was dead within 48 hours, Friday to Sunday. Edwin Walker. Now, what he's saying here is an allegation that he says he was told by someone that he had confidence with in the Dallas Police Department that Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby were arrested after his attempted assassination on April 10th and released on orders of Bobby Kennedy or the Department of Justice or the FBI. Next slide, please. All right. He also wrote another letter to the Kerrville Daily Times on January 19th, 1992. To the editor, a common assassin with a dead president, commander-in-chief. Or, never mind, that's the same fucking letter I just read. All right, next page. Not next slide, but next page.
Yeah. Oh.
They were dated different. God damn, I swore they were different.
That's okay.
All right, so this is a clip from a letter that he wrote to someone at the HSCA in the 70s. General Walker, that is. If authority in the hands of the Attorney General and the Justice Department, okay, that's Bobby Kennedy at the time, and that's the FBI, had not seen fit to free Oswald and his associates, plural, in the attempted assassination of Edwin Walker, there is no reason to doubt that President Kennedy and Senator Robert Kennedy would be alive today. There are bullet holes in a room of this house, my private residence, that testify to this fact. The holes of entry through which the bullet was deflected from an accurate course to the hole of exit is further evidence of expert marksmanship.
Yeah.
So again, General Walker in the 70s had an inkling that Oswald was arrested with associates, plural, and turned loose on the orders of the Attorney General and the FBI, or the FBI.
And of course, he would have right-wing contacts within the DPD.
Of course.
Of course.
Okay. Further corroboration that General Walker knew Jack Ruby. On December 28, 1966, 9 days after Jack Ruby entered his hospital, General Walker wrote a letter to Billy James Hargis and expressed his fear that Ruby might talk. And then Walker issued a warning. The information was buried in the third paragraph of a letter following a trivial discourse about a briefcase Hargis had given him, his regrets that he could not attend a function with Hargis and his family, and his libel lawsuit. This letter was discovered by the author and revealed here for the first time. And this is from the book General Walker and the Murder of President Kennedy by Jeffrey Caulfield. Quote, a warning. When Rubenstein leaves the hospital in a box, in parentheses, the only way he will come out, end of parentheses, there is no further block to returning the blame on the right wing. The books and press will gradually pick it up again. RFK must have it. It must be done as insurance and assurance. And RFK, political necessity. Walker's worry and warning that Ruby might talk is astonishing. It is inconceivable that Walker meant anything else in the message to Hargis other than that he would murder Ruby before he allowed him to leave the hospital, and presumably leave Dallas for Wichita Falls for his retrial, where Walker had no power. As long as Ruby was in Dallas, the comment suggests that Walker could block him from talking. With Ruby out of the Dallas County Jail and on his way to the change of venue for retrial in Wichita Falls, which was scheduled for February of 1967, then the block on his talking was off. Only a guilty man makes the type of remark Walker made to Hargis, as we shall see in the next new chapter, blah, 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 blah. So you have to also remember the interview with Jack Ruby that was videotaped, when he specifically said that he was worried in Dallas from people, and he specifically named General Walker and the John Birch Society. He wanted them to take him to Washington where he would tell them everything. And he did not feel safe in Dallas because of General Walker and the John Birch Society. So is this further proof that maybe Ruby was meeting with Walker? And that maybe Walker and Ruby were a little bit more involved in the Kennedy assassination than they want everybody to believe. Next slide, Jim. All right. Called this Connecting the Dots. We're going to take a look at some of these other scafuzzas that have been mentioned here and there. And let's talk about Tony Nestor Escudero Diaz for a minute.
Of course, a candidate for
Diaz.
Right, on the flight manifest.
Yep. Now, he was an anti-Castro Cuban. James Richards and Gerald Patrick Hemming claimed that Escudero was involved with the events in Dealey Plaza, specifically his role being the Dowtech spotter. In April of 1977, Escudero, Rafael Chichi Quintero Rafael Villaverde, Raul Villaverde, Jesus Lazo, and Valentine Hernandez were the subjects of a U.S. Department of Justice inquiry. In Escudero's case, no identifiable info could be sourced. Escudero, a devout anti-communist, fought the Sandinistas in Nicaragua. His CI case officer was Harold Feeney. Nestor Escudero was killed in Nicaragua in a plane crash in 1979. And he now has a statue in Miami's Little Havana, sculpted by Tony Lopez, erected in 1992 for his bravery. All right. Then we move over to Herminio Diaz Garcia, who would later become a bodyguard for Santos Trafficante, interestingly enough. Diaz Garcia moved to the United States in July of 1963, where he worked for Tony Verona, who we'll get to in a second. Now, you might say, okay, well, this Diaz Garcia is disqualified from being on the April plane ride because he moved to the United States in July of 1963. But that's not to say he wasn't here illegally before that or visited before that.
Right.
He just may have made the official move in July of 1963. So you can't really disqualify him. Some researchers believe that Diaz Garcia was one of the gunmen who killed John F. Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963. Now, in December of 1963, Diaz Garcia was involved in an unsuccessful attempt to assassinate Fidel Castro. He was also involved in providing weapons to anti-Castro groups. Diaz Garcia was killed on a mission at Monte Barreto in the Miramar district of Cuba on 29 May 1966. Tony Suesta was captured during the mission. Suesta, who always vowed that Castro would never take him alive, attempted suicide by setting off a grenade that only ended up blinding him and blowing off his right hand. Suesta spent a long time in the hospital as a result of his serious injuries, and Herminio Diaz Garcia is buried in Columbus, Havana.
Man, that to ignite a grenade and only have it to blow off your hand and blind you, oof.
You have some shit luck.
Can you not set off a grenade and
alive?
yeah, and KYS, you know? Oof. But I think he was later released, right? At some point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Next slide.
Oh,
All
there we
right.
go.
Tony Suesta, speaking of. Okay. He helped to establish two anti-Castro groups, one known as Alpha 66, who you may have heard of, and Commandos Liberty, who you may not have heard of. He also worked closely with Eddie Bayo and later involved in Operation Tilt. Suesta was buddies with Tom Duncan of Life magazine. Suesta was captured during a mission, and like we said, a member of his team, Diaz, was killed during the raid, and he blew off his hand and got blinded, blah, blah, blah. In 1978, President Jimmy Carter arranged for a group of imprisoned exiles to be released, and this included Suesta. Just before leaving Cuba, Suesta asked to see General Fabian Escalante, who was the head of the Cuban G2 spy agency. Suesta told Escalante that he had been involved in the assassination of JFK. He also named Herminio Diaz Garcia and Eladio Del Valle as being involved as well. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why is that significant? Well, Eladio Del Valle. Let's see who this mother effer was. I'll blow him up a little bit there. Interesting story about this guy. All right. Born in Cuba, supporter of Batista, served as congressman in Havana, went into exile just before Fidel gained power. Del Valle moved to Florida, where he was active in the Free Cuba Committee, an organization formed by none other than Sergio Arcachis Smith, later of New Orleans fame, and eventually moved to Dallas. He also worked for Santo Trafficante.
Oh, wow. With Diaz Garcia.
And with his friend David Ferry. He was involved in firebombing sugar fields in Cuba.
Yeah, they did definitely try to, screw with their crops, right?
Yeah. Now, Eladio Duvalier was murdered on February 22nd, 1967. Police reported that Duvalier had been tortured, shot in the heart at point blank range, and his skull split open with an axe, folks.
Wow.
His murder has never been solved, and he died only 4 hours after his buddy David Ferry on the same exact fucking day.
Wow. That seems personal to me. You
Yeah.
may as well just shoot him at point blank range. He's done at the heart. But you're going to split his skull open after? Oof.
He died. Yeah, he died only hours after his friend David Ferry. Diego Gonzalez Tendera, a close friend, later named Duvalier, was murdered because of his involvement in the assassination of President Kennedy. A senior member of the Cuban Secret Service, Escalante, agreed. In 1962, Eladio Duvalier tried to infiltrate Cuba with a commando group of 22 men, and their boat had an English key, a little island in the middle of 62. Of course, we knew this. I tell you about this because one of our agents was one of the people helping to bring this group to Cuba. With a man of very little education, they talked English on many occasions on this little island. With Eladio Duvalier told this person on many occasions that Kennedy must be killed to solve the Cuban problem. And after that, we had another piece of information on Eladio Duvalier. This was offered to us by Tony Suesta, that freaking rat bastard. He told us that Eladio Duvalier was one of the people involved in the assassination plot against Kennedy. In 1975, Harry Dean claimed he had been an undercover agent for the FBI, and in 62, he infiltrated the John Birch Society. He later reported that General Edwin Walker and John Rousselot had hired 2 gunmen, one named Eladio Duvalier and one named Lauren fucking Hall, to kill President John F. Kennedy. However, Dean was unable to provide any evidence to back up this claim.
James had a funny comment. Jack did. He looks like Marco Rubio. Kind of does. He kind of does. But man, so Jimmy Carter got
Suesta out of jail.
Yeah, but 66 to 78 or something? Is that
Well, yeah, man.
12 years he spent there?
Yeah.
In
He
Cuba?
tried to kill Castro.
Well, right, with his hand blown off and blind. That's
Yeah.
crazy. That's
That's
crazy.
worse than death.
That it is. He was unsuccessful in his purpose. That's for sure. And I think that is the last slide we have. So, what are we to make of all of this, Rob? What are we to make of Oswald's Walker Week?
Look, we were trying to prove that it was possible that Oswald went back to New Orleans after being let go from Jagger Child Stovall in early April, and to possibly be on this plane with David Ferry, and they came back to Dallas on April 8th, came up with some plan, or met with Walker and came up with some plan. We don't know which.
No.
But if we were to believe Walker, and I don't know that we can, then it was not. Then it was a legitimate assassination attempt, and whoever the fuck Lambert was, and whoever the fuck Diaz was with David Ferry and Lee Oswald, and they tried to take out Walker for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think we painted a pretty good corroborating picture that Oswald was back in New Orleans. We have testimony from customs agents, INS agents, police officers, eyewitnesses, drunks, cab drivers.
FBI informants.
I mean, it makes sense when you look
It
at
does.
his first letter, because that doesn't make sense when he's talking about the other fracas.
Right.
But it makes
So-
sense that Oswald gets fired. He gets in a fight with Marina. He's like, screw it. I'm going back to New Orleans. I'm going to try to find a place to stay and find another job. He ends up getting tangled up with Ferry again. They come up with some half-cocked fucking idea to take out Walker. Ferry's like, shit, I got a plane. Let's go.
Mhm.
They find two scafuzzers to go with them. Whether I highly doubt it's Clay Shaw. Although it might be. Who the hell knows? Don't know who Diaz is. Lambert could have been an alias for somebody else. Who knows who? Gordon
Right.
Novell, Thomas Beckham. Who knows?
Mhm.
I'm just throwing names out there, but
Yeah. And as we were, kind of debating this back and forth, we discussed why would David Ferry, who was notoriously right wing and anti-Cuban, possibly
he was anti-Castro. He was
I'm sorry, anti-Castro. Yes.
for the Cuban, the Cuban
Yes.
exile. Yes.
Why would he want to do anything to Walker? Now, whether it was a staged event or not, who the hell knows? Maybe Ferry and Co. were not. Walker was notoriously unwilling to support the Cuban cause financially, right?
Not for lack of trying. You have people like Hemming, Hall, Vidal Santiago, to name a few that we know of for sure, that went to see Walker to ask him for money, and he never did give it up.
Right.
So, and these people, I know Hemming definitely met with him and Hall before the assassination attempt.
Yeah.
So was it because Walker was a fraud? Like he was one of these all talk guys, but when it comes down to like really helping you out with some funding or something, it was a fuck off kind of thing. Or maybe hit me up next time you're in town. Maybe I'll have the funds then.
Right.
Type of thing.
And you never know, like the internal. It's really hard to discern the internal beefs that these type of people have. Just look at Jack Martin and David Ferry. Dudes fucking hated each other. Okay? Right? Were they on the same side? Yeah.
Right, but like we
So-
said at the beginning of this, Tiny, that's a problem. Because if it wasn't Oswald on the plane using the Heidel ID, how the fuck does David Ferry or whoever is impersonating Oswald know about this other identity that Oswald has created for himself a month or two ago and happened to order the rifle and the pistol under this name? I mean, I don't know. We know that Oswald knew Ferry. We don't know if anybody impersonating Oswald knew Ferry. And did they try to fool Ferry? I mean, Ferry would have known that this person's not Oswald. I don't know. It's a giant conundrum, and it's all a problem.
Yeah. And we're not saying we have the answers.
No.
We're just saying that the Texas Employment Commission records
Are fucked.
does not show that Lee was there in person on the 8th. Although in theory, I guess he could have made it there if he got right off the plane and went there. But that's not what the records read. The records read he was there on the 12th, not the 8th. So then why? Because you would think if they had availability to this manifest and some of this evidence, right, and say Oswald was arrested on the 11th, the day after the Walker shooting, it helps, show Oswald as a lone nut, but it also doesn't show him as a lone nut, right? As a nut with friends, type of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Tiny says someone originally created the Heidel cover ID. How do we know Oswald created it? There's no proof of that. Well, somebody did. It ended up in his wallet or a wallet. He called himself Alec. We know that in Russia. I mean, I don't know. I mean, because now you're getting into a very conspiratorial, very big, still much bigger, elaborate conspiracy than is generally accepted or believable. When you have multiple people are involved in creating this and setting this guy up, creating fake IDs, ordering rifles in his name, planting rifles in his name. You're picking things up from his PO box and somehow getting these IDs in his wallet. I mean, there's Occam's razor will tell you the guy was working at a photographic place with a fucking professional con man who uses an alias. I mean, chances are pretty good that they're the ones that made the fake IDs. And we have all this other corroborative evidence that Oswald was in New Orleans in early April and could have definitely been on this fucking plane. It's not just one thing. It's not just one piece of evidence. It's not just one thing. We have this mess with the TEC and them lying about the date that he came in there. There's all this obfuscation of when his actual last day of work was, why he was let go, whether he was fired, laid off, or he quit. All this stuff is just it's piled up. Uh-oh. What do we got here?
Oh, GP, I do. What up? Thank you for becoming a member.
Yes, thank you. I believe that's Will, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
Right.
I think so. Turin Horse said, I'm going to have to watch this back again, like 4 times. Yeah, I mean, it's
a lot.
A lot of information we're throwing out there, but we didn't, just come up with it out of our ass. You know what I mean? We kind of stumbled on it by accident, if you will, and then kind of digged in deep to it.
I think, Joe, of all the instances of somebody impersonating Lee Harvey Oswald, it didn't happen in New Orleans. That it was more of a Dallas thing.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Now, if you want to get deep, Tiny, and start going into the John Armstrong thing when Lee's a teenager, then maybe somebody was impersonating him as a teenager, working at 2 JAGs when he's supposed to be in the Marine Corps, whatever bullshit that is. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying to go that route, there's a whole lot more people involved, more conspiracy than just the Occam's razor explanation of the things that logically we can prove. Hey, he was working at Jagger's Child Stovall with a diabolical con man that was on the FBI's most wanted list, who knew all about fake names and aliases. It was on Oswald's library card.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, the original address that I think Oswald gave Jagger's Child Stovall, that was George DeMornshield's wife's
stepson, Gary Taylor, or his DeMornshield's stepson.
Yeah.
Gary Taylor. Yeah, we went over that. I remember something. Yeah.
I mean, it's craziness at every turn.
Yeah. As with almost everything else within this case. But I think we've presented a pretty solid case that there is a good chance, and we're not saying we know what was going on, exactly, But there's some scafuzzary happening here. There's some fuckery. And I think we've provided quite a few evidence of that for sure. So maybe something to continue to look into for sure.
Now, this is the kind of fucking episode. This is the kind of broadcast. This is the kind of presentation that should be fucking happening at Lancer every fucking year by every fucking body.
New research, not recycled ideas.
Right. That is how you do a General Walker episode, Scott Reed.
Yeah. And Tiny says, I applaud Joe's dedication to TLG podcasts and our dedicated crew willing to fly during the craziest week of travel in America. Well, Tiny, my alarm is set for 4:30 a.m. to get on my 6 a.m. flight to Dallas tomorrow.
Nice.
Oi, oi.
Oiga vey.
Yeah. And let's just see. One more.
We got Andy here. I love this episode. This circled back to much of the original New Orleans thought process and tied a lot of different stories together. Thank you, Andy. We thought
Thank
so
you.
too.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it's just like a human reaction. You get in a fight, you get fired from your job, which you've had, or laid off, whatever. You get in a fight, where are you going to go? You're going to go home. Oswald and Marina frequently separated. We have Ruth Payne on the, what was it, the 9th, the Monday, saying, I went to visit Marina. Lee was nowhere to be found. Or maybe it was the 8th. I can't
It was
remember.
the 8th.
It was the 8th. Yeah. You have Kirk Coleman describing at least 3 suspects in the Walker shooting. The only really, I mean, he's a 14-year-old kid, but really the only person that had any visual eyewitness to the shooting. There's something going on. I don't know what it is. I don't know why they would try to do it, try to hide that, other than the fact that they wanted to really portray Oswald as a lone nut, not with other conspirators who probably had connections to intelligence services, right?
Or the FBI, or the military, or the mafia.
Yeah.
Or Fidel Castro. A lot of things that all these people could be tied to that perhaps they didn't want him tied to. I mean, he's bad enough on his own,
I'm right.
But Joe, let's wrap it up before we get too long here.
Thank you, Zendar. I will definitely need it tomorrow morning. Hopefully I make the flight, which is 50-50 at this point.
Yes, we still do not have my Dean Andrews music, so
Yeah.
generic here.
All right. I have
Grab the damn dog.
have treats to lure her.
Thank you, folks, for hanging out with us. We hope you enjoyed the show. We always enjoy doing it. Like I said, we've had this one planned for a while. We've been doing real research on it for months. This is how you fucking do it. We'd have been the stars of the show at fucking Lancer, but this is how we roll. Right here, for free, from the comfort of your own car, living room, kitchen, wherever the fuck you are watching us, listening to us.
Yeah.
And we do it every week, twice a week.
Yes.
Banger after banger after banger.
Yes, that is week 3 of our independent research month. And
Yep,
I
tune in for that.
finally grabbed the damn dog.
Ruby. All right, folks, that's it for us. I'm Rob Clark. He's Joe Borelli. And we are the Lone Gunman Podcast. And we are effing out. Love you guys. See you soon. Sayonara.